Imagine a war where no shots are fired, no tanks roll in, no cities bombed, but the consequences just as deadly. This is a war fought in nanometers and algorithms, a war for artificial intelligence, robots, drones, electric vehicles, and future economies. Welcome to the chip war. And right now, China is outmaneuvering the United States on every front. Semiconductors, you don't see them, you don't think about them, but they are in everything. Your phone, your car, your fridge, your fighter jets. And in this invisible war, two giants are colliding, the United States and China. Whoever wins this battle will not just control technology, but the future itself. AI, robotics, cyber weapons, automation, quantum computing, the battlefield is silicon. The US had a planned choke off China's access to advanced chips. Blacklist Huawei, ban Nvidia from exporting its AI chips. Strong-arm allies like Japan, South Korea, and the Netherlands into cutting Beijing off. But it's not working. Despite sweeping sanctions, Huawei is back, not just surviving but designing its own chips like the Ascend 910B, a powerful AI processor built using Taiwanese technology. Let's be clear, that chip should not exist. TSMC, Taiwan's crown jewel, hasn't been selling chips to Huawei since 2020, and yet that 7-nanometer chip is inside Chinese servers. How? Smugglers, middlemen, gray markets, loopholes. Washington's plan is leaking and China's catching up. In 2020, US officials were smug. China was 5, maybe 10 years behind in chip design. But now, according to White House tech advisor David Sachs, China is just 2 years behind. That's not a gap, that's a warning siren. Worse still, every time the US tightens export controls, China doubles down on domestic development. And it's working. Huawei is pouring $25 billion a year into R&D. That's twice the budget of Nvidia. 1/3 of that budget goes into theoretical physics and next-generation design, things Western firms aren't even exploring yet. What happens when you isolate a superpower? It builds its own systems, its own fabs, its own design teams, its own AI. This is what China's doing, fast. The goal isn't just catching up to the West, it's creating an entirely independent semiconductor ecosystem, one the United States can't block, can't control, and can't contain. That's why Washington is panicking. Because once Huawei starts mass-producing those chips at scale and at lower cost, they won't just take over China, they'll go global. Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, markets where cost matters more than brand, and Huawei has the upper hand. Here's the dirty secret no one wants to talk about. China is still getting Nvidia chips. How? Third-party resellers? Buyers in Singapore, Malaysia, and even United States firms themselves are selling chips legally purchased and then resold. And now, with export rules set to ease for non-China countries, even more chips will flood into the gray market. More smugglers, more shipments, more pathways to Beijing. Washington is playing whack-a-mole, and Beijing is playing chess. Now enter Taiwan, the eye of the storm. Last week, Taiwan imposed its own export controls on chip equipment and materials heading to Huawei and SMIC. Coincidence? Not likely. The United States has been applying immense pressure on Taipei to get in line. And it worked. But this also means that the remaining back doors China had to access cutting-edge Taiwanese chips are shutting, permanently. And this is escalating the war into something much bigger. This isn't just a fight over who designs the best chip, it's trench warfare over supply chains, and every trench matters. The United States has targeted ASML in the Netherlands, the only company on Earth that can build EUV machines needed to produce the world's most advanced chips. And next up is Tokyo Electron in Japan, under pressure from Washington to sever ties with Chinese clients. But even if all these companies comply, China isn't sitting still. They're pouring billions into domestic alternatives, recruiting overseas engineers, reverse engineering every machine they can get their hands on. And most importantly, they have the energy to back it all up. Let's talk power, because none of this works without electricity. Semiconductor fabs are energy monsters. And China? It's crushing the United States in energy production. In 2024 alone, China produced more than 10,000 terawatt-hours of electricity, double that of the United States. They're building new nuclear plants faster than anyone. Solar farms? Everywhere. Coal plants? Still operational. Meanwhile, America's grid? Flat. Stalled for 30 years. Computer scientist Steve Su said it best. Aluminum is just electricity turned into metal. Now imagine chips. If this comes down to energy scaling, China has already won. Donald Trump isn't sitting on the sidelines either. He's pushing to build a $1 trillion AI complex in Arizona, America's own answer to Shenzhen. Backed by SoftBank, the goal is to reshore TSMC, build robots, AI chips, and create a full-stack semiconductor city. Sounds bold, ambitious, historic, but also wildly unrealistic. TSMC isn't transferring their best tech to the US. They know the cost is too high. American labor is expensive, productivity is lower, and the energy, just not enough. Even if the US builds the fab, what powers it? Hope? And while everyone's focused on chips, a quieter crisis is unfolding: rare earths. China controls 60 to 80% of the world's rare earth magnets. In May 2025, China slashed magnet exports by over 76%, a drop of over 90% since March. And now, shipments are under 100 tons a week. This isn't just hurting the Pentagon, it's crippling the entire US industrial base. Everything from EVs to wind turbines to military satellites depends on these magnets, and the US can't find suppliers fast enough. Sure, alternative sources exist, but they're more expensive, slower, and less reliable. China isn't just winning the chip war, it's winning the resource war. So where does that leave us? Washington is bleeding credibility, its allies are growing nervous, and China? It's catching up faster than anyone predicted. This war isn't about sanctions anymore, it's about ecosystems. If China builds an end-to-end, energy-backed, resource-fed chip supply chain, the US can't contain it. It's the ultimate checkmate. Because you can't sanction your way out of an industrial disadvantage. You have to outbuild, outpower, outscale. And right now, China is doing all three. This isn't just a chip war, it's a war for civilizational leadership. The winner gets to define the rules of the future of AI, of war, of industry, of economy. So tell me, can the United States really stop China? Or has Beijing already rewritten the rulebook? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Smash that like button to boost this into the algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next breakdown in this tech Cold War. This is not just tech, this is survival. Stay sharp, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next one.